Vaccines are the single most important way of dealing with COVID. We've always dealt with, or since 1850, we've dealt with vaccines in schools. It's not a new thing to have immunizations in schools. And I think that on a personal matter, as a matter of personal conscience, I think that we need to be working with our employers, not opposing them, on vaccine mandates.
I've decided I love Randy Weingarten in her Beach Boys haircut for a very specific reason. To talk about that, Kira Davis, the editor-at-large for Red State. Kira, I've decided I love this woman because I want everybody out of these garbage government schools and homeschooled, and I think she's done more for that than you or I combined in our entire life.
Yeah, we really should be thanking Randy Weingartner. I mean, she has been, this whole year has really taken the mask off of what happens in public schools and teachers' unions and where their actual loyalties lie. And I just can't believe that Weingarten is so committed to this narrative. I mean, I think it must be that I know it is that the unions have a lot to gain by forcing vaccinations among children. They're heavily invested in some of these pharmaceutical companies. And so there is a lot going on underneath the surface. And it's nice that the mask has been ripped off here. Weingarten's right. Vaccines have been a part of education for years and years and years. I mean, when you register your kids in public school every year, you got to bring your vaccination records. But you have the right to also refrain from vaccinating your kids. And you simply sign a waiver. It is your constitutional right to have your child in school, even if they don't have the vaccinations that we all agree typically are good for your child. You can do that, but they don't want us to do that with this COVID vaccine. Why is this different than any other vaccine?
Aren't they playing the short game, though, Kira, or am I missing this?
Sure.
If we have these homeschooling numbers that are going up, and they're going up across the country, it's not just like it's in these blood red states. Parents are pulling their kids out of schools. Aren't they cutting off their nose to spite their face?
Yeah, this is what I can't figure out. I just think that they must think that the money is going to, I guess, bring them more power, and then they can squash whatever. I don't know. I don't understand it, but you shouldn't stop shouldn't stop your enemy from cutting off their own hands, And if they want to do this, fine, but absolutely. I mean, I've always said that if just 10% of America falls off of the public school scales and moves to homeschooling, that's a dramatic shift. And I think we're about at 10, we might be close to 15% now that have moved at least out of public into either homeschooling, microschooling, or charter schooling. So we're already seeing a dramatic shift. You couple that with what's going on across the nation in local school boards where parents are standing up to mask mandates, to CRT, and the teachers' unions have gotten themselves into a huge jam. And if you wouldn't mind me just making a couple of larger connections here. This
Please.
is why the union system is squirming right now. This is why they are trying to jam the PRO Act down our throats, which they have now stuffed into the Infrastructure Act. The PRO Act would basically make your side gigs, side jobs illegal, and you would have to be a W-2 employee. We have it here in California. It's called AB 5. It's what kicked off the election of Recall Newsom. Speaking of which, teachers' unions have thrown in an extra, I think something like $3 million to Newsom's recall campaign. Today, Red State is going to break some stories about what's going on with printing at-home ballots for the recall. The teachers' unions know that if Newsom gets recalled here, that's going to spell certain disaster for California unions. I know, Jesse. We are up against it, and they know it, and that's why, when you shine the light on an insect, on roaches, they scatter, they squirm, and that's what's happening now. We're watching the union system squirm. They know that they're becoming obsolete, and they're going to fight so hard to the last moment to not have to progress with the rest of America. So,
Kira, on a macro level, setting aside all the specific stuff for a second, doesn't it feel like we're pulling apart faster than we were before? I mean, you can argue it's a good thing, you can argue it's a bad thing, whatever you want to argue, but doesn't it feel like as a country, we are pulling apart pretty fast now? It feels that way to me.
The activists are running the government agenda rather than the typical slow, self-serving politicians in Congress, which we all complain about, but it actually Congress should be slow. It should not be moving this fast. I know everybody's like, oh, we need to come together and work together in bipartisanship. No, Congress is designed to move slowly. You should not be able to quickly change the laws on Americans. So it does feel chaotic because it is chaotic. But the flip side of that is that we do have an election coming up in 2022. I have firmly believed always that in the end, even if it gets obfuscated once in a while, Americans will have their say and they will have their way. So this is why it's really important for every single conservative Republican voter out there, or any Democrat who's just fed up with what's going on, to get in the game, draw your lines now, take a stand now, and don't move. Like, and forget what people call you and what names they call you. Do not move. Stand now. If it feels chaotic, that's the game. So it's not time for us to retreat from that game. It's time for us to start putting up the shields.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the first on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.